Okay, let me see. Have you noticed the vibe shift from Asmongold TV? Okay, let me see.
Hi, guys. Today I wanted to talk to you all about what I believe to be probably the biggest cultural shift that we have ever seen. If you're anywhere around my age, except for maybe September 11th, I think that this cultural shift has been observed now for about 2 to 3 years. And when it really was codified as, like, yeah, this is happening, it's when Trump won the US election. And now, in the aftermath of that, I think that you can very clearly see people are emboldened by that, they're galvanized by it, and people are much more willing to share their viewpoints on things that have been much more conservative, much more traditional than what I think a lot of people would, expect or maybe have you believe. And so I want to talk today about why that actually happened, why I think it happened,
Mm-hmm.
and where the culture is going to be going from this perspective, right? From this direction. And so, anyway, the first thing you have to do in order to explain where it's going to go is to explain where it came from. So, the reason why I think a lot of this happened and we've had a shift, and before I do that, I'll also explain where I think this shift is coming from. I think that we are shifting away from a more censorship heavy, a more, censored speech heavy, compelled speech heavy. And I think that you're seeing a lot of backlash against, what were considered to be like, protected types of thinking and protected groups of people. You're seeing a tremendous amount of backlash against.
Okay. Um, this is kind of hard to talk about because I don't really watch TV anymore. A lot of the times I just get my news from I don't know, social media or whatever, X, Facebook, YouTube, whatever social media I'm on. If there's like a big event happening, I will usually see it in like my social feeds or something like that. Um, I like like my mom watches like regular news, like conventional news, and like I go out and I like go to her house and I'm just like, well, what are you doing? I'm just like, oh, I'm just watching the news, and I'm like, sit down and watch, and I'm just like, I am just so disinterested with whatever is happening on the regular news. It's just like, oh, some they're talking about like some puppy getting rescued. I'm like, okay, whatever. This is stupid. They're talking about like TikTok dances that are going viral on like Fox or CNN or MSNBC. I'm just like, is this legacy news? This is so bad. So regular legacy news is just, I mean, from like a regular, like 35-year-old dude perspective, is just, it's non-existent for me. It just doesn't exist. Like, yes, it exists, but it's just not there. And as far as the censorship of speech and things like this, I mean, this has been a thing for like the last 10, 15, 20 years. It's just going away. Or I'll say like the harder type words of like the F slur, the N word, like retarded, is going away. What else? Just like slurs against certain ethnic groups and stuff like that. Like, bro, I'm going back and watching Breaking Bad, like season one. That shit was released in like what 2008, and I'm like, holy shit! The shit that they're saying in this show is like, holy crap! Like, there's just a huge difference in what, like 15 years, damn near. But I don't think we're going back to being able to like say like the F slur, the N word, being able to get away with talking about or calling like certain ethical groups, like the conventional slurs and things like that. I don't think we're ever going back to that. It's just not happening. Um, but as far as like the censorship of like, it's like the goalpost is being like moved, is what it feels like. Like, more and more words are going into the bucket of you can't say this in public, you can't say that in public, and like maybe with the election of Trump, like maybe the goalpost, if the goalpost was constantly moving this way, maybe it'll like move back a little bit. But what's gonna happen after the next 4 years? I'm probably gonna imagine the goalpost is still gonna like keep going that way still. So maybe yeah, there is like a little bit of a vibe shift, but it's like a temporary thing, if anything.
That I think this is mainly evidenced on Twitter, but you can see this in YouTube comments. You can see this in comment sections of any game or like any video. I think that in general,
I will say there is a different. Well, there's kind of a difference between seeing comments on like a YouTube video and Twitter because they're like, yes, they are like objectively public spaces, but unless you're like on there looking for them, you're probably not gonna see like the comments as opposed to like like a video game lobby where yes, it is public and it's a literal coin toss of whether or not that lobby is being monitored from your favorite video game developer. Uh, Bro, people will still say and type some like fucked up shit in those lobbies. So yes, the censorship does exist, but I don't really think people are gonna stop talking trash or anything like that in video games or like public. I mean, because like video game lobbies, yes, like yes, they are public, but they're public and they're private. Like if you can get what I'm saying, like it's weird. Like all discords are technically public, but there's not a lot of people really going around or like randomly joining like just Discord servers and whatnot.
you're just seeing a massive backlash against what people believe to be authoritarian levels of compelled thought and compelled speech. And big surprise, where did compelled thought and compelled speech come from? Where was the genesis of that recently? Definitely from COVID. And I think collectively, the government and the social media websites, the way that they handled people that were dissenters during COVID, the way that they handled that caused a schism in the trust of the people into the government, into these companies, into anything. And I don't think that schism, I don't think that that disconnect is really going to be mended anytime soon. I think it's probably going to take 10 to 20 years for that trust to be rebuilt because people would be hearing, oh, well, it's going to take 2 years, or sorry, not 2 years, excuse me. That's actually what it did take. 2 weeks to stop the spread. And just wear a mask. This will solve it. Just take your vaccine. This will solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the messaging for COVID in general was very authoritarian in many cases. And I think that also there were countries besides the United States that were even more authoritarian.
Authoritarian sounding. Um, Bro, it seems like COVID was like it happened like forever ago. I mean, it wasn't, but it was only like it either ended like in a year or two, depending on like what state you were in and how like lax they got with the rules on like wearing a mask and shit like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, for like a year at least, like anytime you turn on the news or social media, everyone was trying to figure out what's happening. What do I take the vaccine? Do I not take the vaccine? Do I take this one from that company? Do I not take that one from that company? Do I gotta like re-up the booster one, booster two, booster three, or whatever? Everybody was just like worried or didn't really know what to do. Um, as far as like authoritarian sounding, um, there's always this like worry, I think, when it comes to, oh, I'm just gonna defer to the science of it. Um, and just my opinion is gonna be like it just do whatever the science says is right and whatnot. But like for the most part, that's like what I would do. But whenever we were in like the middle of COVID, it just seemed like things were getting expedited just for the sake of like panic, which didn't really like that's just a vibe. I mean, it's just a feels over reels type of thing. I can't really explain it. Um, yeah, and because it felt everything was going like getting expedited super quick, that kind of, I don't know, caused me to like kind of worry. I mean, I still got like the vax or whatever. I mean, I don't give a shit. I'm fine. But I don't know. It's just a thought that happened in my head. So I don't know.
with how they handled COVID. And because of that, guess what happened? You had a lot of people who were like, yeah, this is fucking bullshit. We don't believe this, and we want to be able to think for ourselves. And when they did that on
Yeah, but I mean, people trying to think for themselves on a for COVID. It's like, bro, normal people can't like grasp like the actions of a tiny little germ cell or a tiny little virus. Okay, normal people can't grasp that.
social media, they got in trouble. Now, you can think that that's a good thing, or you can think it's a bad thing. I'm not really going to try to convince you one way or another, but I think that really the big shift for that was COVID is what really started building up that resentment. And then that resentment finally boiled over, and people were able to express it when I believe Elon Musk bought Twitter.
The resentment. I don't think it for me. It wasn't resentment. It was just like questionability of things that are happening. Um, I don't think it was resentment. Like if the U.S. needs to do something and expedite something for the sake of like a state of emergency, I mean, by all means, fucking do it. Um, but I like you can't say that like my ability to like worry about the thing is completely invalidated because it's like literally never happened before.
Because before Elon Musk bought Twitter, there was almost no avenue on social media that you could actually speak your mind and give like a honest opinion on things besides maybe 4chan, right, on poll. And so besides that,
I mean, I knew about 4chan, but I'm not like a regular of that website. I'm just like, just give me some normie social medias. I'm good.
you couldn't really say what you think. You can't say it on Reddit. You can't say it on YouTube. YouTube is probably the most the most liberal with that. You can pretty much say as much almost as much as you want, but YouTube does still have a lot of restrictions, more so than Twitter, for example. You can't say what you want on Facebook. You can't say what you want on old Twitter, and basically all of these social media platforms that people used were used as basically tools to compel speech and to suppress people's thoughts. And I think that if you just take a step back and you think about this from an abstract, I think that you need to come to the realization that people don't like being told what to think, they don't like being told what to say, and they don't like being told that, and they don't want to be told what to do, right?
Yes and no. People don't want to be told what to think and do. I would say, unlike a microscopic scale in terms of like their individual thought. Um, but to be honest, how many people actually have a good grasp on life and know exactly what they want to do? I'd probably say most people don't. They want to be told, like, hey, if you want to be successful, do this, this, and this. You know, what's the American dream? Go to school, go to college, get a degree, get a good job, buy a home, buy a car, buy a home, get a wife, have kids. That is the American dream is being told to you what to do to be like successful, and a lot of people went for that. Um, Whether or not they like it or dislike it, is kind of subjective. Um, I mean, shit. If somebody told me this is the easiest way to make $10 million, this is how you do it. This is a step by step how to do it, bro. I would do that shit immediately. Are you kidding me? People would love to be told what to do if the right things lined up. But when it comes to things like subjective opinion, it's like nobody cares about being told what to think or in that sense. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day. And so anybody who's trying to take an authoritarian stance, trying to tell you what to do, you're going to automatically get a negative response from that, at least here in the United States. And so that's happened, I think, as a result of COVID. Elon Musk buys Twitter, and now all of the people who didn't exist are making up for lost time. Like, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but holy shit, there is a lot of racism on Twitter now. Oh my god. And do you want to know why there's a lot of racism?
Honestly, I don't really see it because I don't know how the fucking Twitter algorithm works. But if you like put a lot of engagement into racism, you will the I would assume the algorithm will feed you with more racism. Like likewise, if you feed and engage with a lot of lefty stuff, you're gonna get a lot of lefty stuff. If you feed and engage with the algorithm and a lot of righty stuff, it's gonna give you a lot more righty stuff. That's just how I would think it operates, but I don't know. I just for the most part, shit, I don't even know what I look at on Twitter. It's just like random ass memes and shit, like or like whatever's trending. I mean, shit.
On Twitter, I'll tell you why. It's because there's a lot of racist people.
Yeah.
That's the reason. Anybody who can speak English all over the world, except for maybe a couple of countries, a few countries, probably more like it, can make a Twitter account and express exactly what they think. And so, big surprise, you're going to have people that live in totally different cultures expressing viewpoints that are not congruent with liberal Western values. And this has been a very, very upsetting reality for many people that use Twitter, but in my opinion, I find it to be a very sobering fact. I think it's extremely important to know what people are actually thinking rather than having a manicured, curated, and censored view of the
Mm,
world that immediately shatters whenever you introduce it to actual reality, which is
dang. He is actually. I would agree with him on that. It is 100% better to know what people are thinking, but also, how do you figure out who's like lying versus who is telling the truth? I mean, it's kind of like a toss up, really.
what I think happened with the 2024 election. I think that people imagined this was going to happen because all of the celebrities said this was going to happen, all of mainstream media said this was going to
Mm-hmm.
happen, and then the day comes and it's actually something totally different. And I think that what this has really happened is that people are pushing back against a basically there is a false god of authoritarianism
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people online have prescribed to. They have been worshiping this false god. And I think that they are doing that because their other previous gods were determined to be false. There's always the quote of God is dead from Nietzsche, but
Mm-hmm.
that's only half of the quote. The full quote is God is dead and we have killed him. I think that the
Mm.
society that's totally killed God, there's no sense of religion in culture anymore.
I mean, if you look at the United States, isn't like the predominant religion still Christianity? At like some percent, but to my understanding, that percent is going down. Um, I mean, my 2 cents about religion was like it was fine and needed in a time where nobody had morals or ethics and nobody could really figure out what was right and what was wrong. Um, as far as like your Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs goes, back like a couple hundred years ago, um, like religion was like super popular with a lot of people, most people, and then as time goes on, as technology progresses, religion seems to just die off less or more and more as technology progresses. That's just the trend that I see, because more and more things can get solved, uh, or more and more questions can get answered uh, that we just could not wrap our minds around before. Trying to figure out like the morality and ethics of a certain action. Um, those questions can still exist in terms of like business or whatever. Like owning patents or engaging in certain business practices. Is this morally right or wrong? Is this ethically right or wrong? I mean, we could ask those questions until the cows come home and whatever. And I don't really know if religion could answer those questions. Um, but on like a basic individual level, I think if you like just talk to anybody, most people have pretty similar morals and ethics.
And I think that's very, by the way, that's very upsetting for many people. Religion is a very reassuring thing for many people. I am not a religion enjoyer, personally. I think that you guys probably know that. I'm much more of an enlightened, euphoric atheist. But
Oh
at
boy.
the end of the day, I can recognize that it does have I guess, like function in a lot of people's lives. And so when you're taking that away from people and they don't have access to what would be a way to order the universe and a way to see how things are, they're going to invent their own way to order things. And I think that the way that they did that was they replaced religion with political dogma. And I think this has
Mm.
happened in a lot of cases. And really, people that attach their meaning and like their identity and like their feelings onto these different movements, I think that for many of them, they're looking for something that religion or some form of like existential reassurance would give them.
Oh yeah, people want to be part of a group all the time at all points. This is more so the case for, uh, well, I don't know about more, but I noticed this in people that are older than me. Uh, like whenever they're like talking about this group, that group on Facebook, or maybe like they're part of like a golf club or something, and they're super into their golf club, and you just all of a sudden adopt all of the thoughts that the golf club has as a whole, whatever that may be. Um, yeah, people just want to be really like accepted. They want to be validated by like some form of a group or whatever. It's very hard for like an individual to have their own sense of like self validation, because if you it's very hard to be like an individual with and like have a lot of self criticism about yourself, and you try to be honest with yourself, um and not be delusional that you are like either like a saint or like a perfect person. um yeah, I mean, a lot of the time people need to have like an idol to like look up towards, and it's not like the worst thing, I don't think. I mean, shit, like whenever I started working out, I would look to like Dragon Ball Z characters and shit like that. I wanted to look like Goku. It's like, ooh. But you know, as time goes on, my will and resolve of just going to the gym has just demonstrated to be like fantastic over and over again. So I mean, yeah, while it's not the worst, it's like okay to be like motivated by something else. I think it's also important to find yourself to be your own motivator.
And I think that the movements, whether it's a political movement, whether it's a social movement, whether it's a social cause, I think that those movements actually, for a lot of people now, are filling the place that religion previously had. And I think that if you don't think that's true, just look at how they fucking defend them. I swear to God, there's people, you'd get less pushback from blasphemy in a lot of churches. And so, yes, people get very, very, very attached to these things because they built their entire identity off of them. And I think also this is especially true with young people. And with young people, it's that they've had unironic arrested development from COVID. And I think this is true
Mm.
not just for, it's like, oh, the kids are retarded. No, no. I think this has happened for a lot of people, including young adults. And so you have people that spend, let's say the ages of, like 15 to 18 locked down in COVID. Well, big fucking surprise. Whenever they turn 18, they're not going to know how to act. And they're going to probably still be acting like 15-year-olds. And so you have people that have been developmentally, basically.
Like stifled, I would say, developmentally stifled, which is kind of crazy to think about, because if it's only like a year or two between the ages of like 15 to 18, or 14 to 18, pick like a chunk, or for like 14 to 19, somewhere in there. The fact that you can have like your whole personality at that age be changed over like just because like there was like a year or two where you were not entirely isolated within like a room. All right, I think that's like kind of crazy. I think that most people were like isolated because I 100% would probably bet that, even though you had like lockdowns or something like that for like some neighborhoods or cities, or like if you lived in like a big city or something like New York or something, where it's like you had to be like locked down. It's like, yeah, I get it. Okay. But that like one little city compared to the rest of the United States is like it's insignificant. You look at the entirety of the U.S. and you look at like what was it, like the pandemic lockdown regulations. Like, bro, some people were abiding by it, but I would say a lot of people were just being like, nah, fuck that. I'm still gonna like hang out with my friends. I'm still gonna hang out with my neighbors. Maybe they did a little bit of social distancing, but or um, maybe they just hung out with their friends like online or something like that. Like the the isolation factor, it wasn't like you were locked in a room and like you couldn't talk to anybody at all ever. All right, that's not the case. People were still finding ways to communicate with each other by all means. But it is kind of like interesting to see that like that 1 or 2 years of 2020 and 2021 could have such an impact on like your teenage years, or like your younger kid years if you're that age.
Arrested, and they've taken 3 years of like social development and socialization and just pretty much outsourced it to a social media website that's
Yeah.
fed them a worldview that's completely distorted. It doesn't represent anything in real life. And now they go into real life, and the dissonance between what they believe the world should be and what the world is gets bigger and bigger. And I think it makes people angrier and angrier. And I think that that's really where a lot of the hostility is coming from. It's the refutation of those types of people that have used political dogma and social, like socio-political issues, and
Hmm.
they've replaced religion with these things. It is a pushback against those people. And the reason why I think this pushback is happening is very simple. It's because people just don't want to hear what they're saying and they don't agree with it. It's actually just that simple. And so for a long time, you were not able to express your disagreements. You were not able to tell anybody that, like, yeah, I don't actually think this is true. This isn't really what's happening. And
I mean, but like with what examples though? Like conspiracy theories? I would need to hear like more examples of like instances on social media, like the manicured version of the social media, where there's something came out and you were able to, if you disagreed with it, you got like banned or something. Like, I would need to hear like some more examples.
and because you would get banned. But that all changed when Elon Musk bought Twitter. Because when Elon Musk bought Twitter, everybody who had an opinion was able to say what that opinion was, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And I think that we've seen a lot of both of those. And so
Hmm.
now what we've had is that we have tons of
Oh yeah, it is the Wild West on Twitter. It is actually crazy.
people that feel, uniquely emboldened in a way that they had
Excuse me, X.
and really in probably 10 years on social media, given the level of censorship and control. And now people are going and saying what they really think. And I think that they're doing so in a manner that is making up for lost time. And another big component for this is that I think that there has been what I would really kind of refer to as emotional blackmail that's been going on for a very, very long time, where you can't have certain opinions about certain topics because it can be perceived as being mean, or you can be seen as a bad person. I
Hmm.
think that there's been a level of fatigue that is caused for people, and it's like if
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's probably referencing like uh, social politics with all of the wokeness or DEI in movies, video games, and TV shows. If a movie comes out, or a show, or a video game comes out, and the general audience perceives it to be uh, woke in the sense that the the story was contrived to force like a certain narrative that isn't isn't like doesn't align with either like gameplay, for the pure story sake or like historical accuracy. They believe that that piece of media is just complete bullshit.
Essentially, like, for example, somebody thinking that they don't want illegal immigrants in their country, this
Or
doesn't
that.
necessarily mean that they're like a racist or a Nazi. And so, because of that, and the emotional escalation and the emotional blackmail that people use in order to try to force people into having these certain types of worldviews, the optics of these arguments oftentimes become more important than the arguments themselves. It's kind of like what I've said before, is that the strongest argument isn't an argument. Many people do not operate based off of logic or reasoning. They operate based off of emotion and
Mm-hmm.
feeling. And big surprise, that's been what's taken over a lot of things. And also, this is a very important component. Meet the old boss, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's not like this is totally going away. I think that we're just replacing one form of this behavior with another. And
I think it's just more nuanced and more subtle, and everybody does it. All people do it, whether or not you want to admit you're doing it or you knowingly or unknowingly are doing it. You're still doing it. Um, all your favorite YouTubers are doing it. All your bosses are doing it. Everybody's doing it. The president's doing it. Everybody's engaging in emotional manipulation.
And that's very worrisome to me. And I think that really what's going to continue to happen is you're going to have more people pushing back against, established social norms as much as possible, and making a push more towards traditionalism, more towards conservatism. And I think that this is also happening again because of that lack of meaning and culture. You don't have the same shared culture that something like a religion provides. And because of that,
But what's the culture of the United States of America? It's such a melding pot of everybody. There is no culture besides American culture. It's like everything and it's nothing at the same time.
you're having tons of people that don't know what to do with their life. They don't know who they are. They don't know what their identity is, because the previous things and previous lives that have given them that identity are now being taken away or have been taken away. I think probably the best example of that is with jobs. So when somebody has their a job replaced by AI or replaced with automation, and they're not able to get a new one or something like that, and they are disconnected from the value of their work, I think that again, there's something that's existential that's taken away from that person, because now they no longer can take pride and take pleasure in the idea that they have done good work and they are contributing to their community, or they are doing something that's positive. And of course, obviously, why is that? Number one, it's because a lot of these jobs are, computer jobs, and so it's not really as directly evident in the same way that, like, you can do something that's more physical. That's number one. And then also number two is they're not really being paid very well. So you have people that have shitty jobs, they're not
Mm-hmm.
being paid very well. And guess what? They're looking for some form of meaning in life and somebody to tell them that that worldview is not going to last. Things are going to keep getting better. And anybody that sells that person a solution is going to have a lot of fucking buyers. And I think that's very
Yeah.
clearly what's happened. So, what I expect to see happen now is that you're going to see probably a lot of people who have been pushing back against the culture of, like, cancel culture, and people getting, banned for having wrong opinions on things. Obviously, it'll still happen sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I've got an example of that one way or another. But I think that, of course, sometimes that will still happen, but it has been much less common. And you're even seeing things like, I think that another, like another benchmark for this is that, you can look back at the Hogwarts legacy, the debacle with that and how
Yeah.
angry everybody was with J.K. Rowling. And now that there's a new Harry Potter project,
Really?
the studio that's doing it has even said, it's her freedom of speech. She can think what she wants. And so I think that is a tremendous divergence from what previously was the case, where you were not able to have certain opinions about certain topics like that. J.K. Rowling had controversial opinions about trans people. Whether you agree with them or not, you have to acknowledge that they were controversial with a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people. And because of that, people didn't want Harry Potter existing anymore, right?
Well, yes. I think this is just an issue that people have to come more and more to grips with. The more they get to know the people that make their shit. Are you an adult, a grown adult enough to be able to separate the art from the artist? I think that concept is becoming more and more of a like an issue that people are just like having to face. Look at like stand-up comedians like Bill Cosby or something. All the fucked up shit he did, but yet his stand-up is still pretty funny. Or a lot of music writers or something like that. You like listen to somebody's music for a long time and they're really good, only to find out in the news that they did some fucked up shit. They did a massive amount of drugs. They were like sexually assaulting people or whatever. Can you still enjoy that music? Or on a more direct example, a lot of the clothes that you wear are probably made in some form, or the furniture you wear, or the furniture you wear, the furniture you buy is probably made in China. And a lot of the technology in your room or whatever, probably made in China. There's probably some form of child labor going on, child slavery labor going on, required to build some of these products, and yet you still buy them. Does that make you a supporter of child slave labor? Well, no, I don't think it does, because there are too many degrees of separation from me and the actual act of that happening. I mean, just in my opinion. I mean, look at your smartphone. Everybody's got a smartphone, right? The cobalt mines, all the shit that's happening with the cobalt mines and shit like that. But yet, nobody really wants to give up their smartphone for that reason, because they really like smartphones. You really like clothes, and you really like modern day technology. You like modern day amenities and things like this. And if you were to try to avoid and live your life in such a way that you don't engage with anything with that has been deemed by yourself to be like morally and ethically bad by however many degrees of separation, well then you just end up living in the woods in the middle of nowhere with no real interaction with society. That's what would end up happening. All right. But since you don't want to live like that, you have to come to grips with separating the art from the artist.
And I think that after that kind of reaches its logical conclusion, where it's no longer seen as a reasonable response, and now it's just like an overcorrection that is fueled primarily by anger and frustration, then you're really going to see people kind of lose interest with that type of movement. And I think that's exactly what's happened. I think that a lot of people are just tired of having their opinions dictated to them. They're tired of not being able to think things that they believe are just a priori knowledge. Like, this is just, it is known to be the case. Obviously, there's the difference between men and women, etc. And this big split has happened. And now there aren't the same censorship apparatuses that maintain the previous power structure. And so you're seeing tons of people now speaking out against it, and really nothing happening because of it, for better or for worse, again. And so I think you're going to continue seeing that happen. You're going to continue seeing people pushing back against like these mainstream narratives. And I think that the pushback will eventually become just as oppressive as the narrative originally was, because that's the way the pendulum always swings. Things always keep going until there's too much, and
Mm-hmm.
they always stop when there's too little, right? That's it. That's it. And so people love to radicalize, people love to become extreme, and I think the internet has provided a perfect place.
Do they? Do people love to radicalize? I don't know. I mean, I think for the most part, people like to just chill and do their own thing. Like, the people that like to radicalize are a minority, but unfortunately, those are the people that you see the most. All right, you're not seeing the regular Joe Schmo dude just chilling, going to his job every day. You're not seeing uh, the regular person just going to their job, doing engaging in like a couple hobbies. Maybe they go out for a drink or something, and they just go about their day, just doing whatever. This like radicalization, uh, like I don't know, we would probably have to like have like a more, I think a deeper or like a different conversation on like the radicalization of people and how much they love to radicalize.
for people to radicalize themselves. And I think it's happened because of the lack of meaning with religion. I think it's happened because of the lack of meaning with, gainful employment. I think it's happened with the lack of meaning culturally. There's no sense of like, shared culture in the U.S. At least not as much of as whenever I was a kid, I would say.
Well, what do you mean by shared culture? Like, I guess it would depend on like from city to city. Like obviously, if you're like in a primary, like in a city that is primarily getting like just immigrants, period. I mean, those cities and states are gonna be like like culturally diverse, but like some of the states, some states probably don't have like a big diverse culture. So I don't like. What do you mean culturally diverse? Or let me see.
Sense of like, shared culture in the U.S.
Shared culture in the U.S. What is the culture of the United States? Is it capitalism, business, starting a business? Does everybody have to start their own business? Does everybody have to have like a successful like business to where they don't have to work for anybody else and they are 100% fulfilled with their job? I don't think that's the case. There's no shared culture there. People, I mean, because there's so many people like just working like whatever jobs at like Walmart, McDonald's, Uber Eats, or something like that, and they're just like doing it because it's a job. I mean, there's a shared culture in misery. That's there. Uh, there's a shared culture in like I would say maybe enjoying hobbies with if you can find like a group of people that like doing the same shit you do. Maybe that type of shared culture.
US, at least not as much of as whenever I was a kid, I would say. And I think you put all these things together and you have an existential crisis that an individual has, and they're looking for anybody to replace that. And where a lot of these like socio-political movements come from, that's why you're seeing a lot of people get back more into religion now. I think that religion is making a pretty big comeback, and I think the reason for
Mm, Religion is making a very big comeback. I don't think so, buddy. No, wasn't it just like last year or the year before? Uh, like more and more people are just shying away from religion. Yeah, I don't think religion's coming back.
that is because people are looking for that antidote of modern existence. They're looking for like the way that they can order the world that makes sense, because the way that people are talking about it on the internet really doesn't. And so I wanted to talk about this because I think it's a very interesting thing, and I think it's going to shift the way that all media is portrayed. Now, obviously, things like this are a very big boat. It takes a long time to turn, but you can already see that happening with people that had previously like problematic opinions, etc. Just kind of get ignored in a way that I don't think would have happened 3 or 4 years ago. And if you want my personal opinion on the whole thing, I think that's a good thing. I feel like the amount of, as I said before, emotional blackmail and censorship and compelled speech that was on the internet for, I'd say the last maybe, I'd say like from 2017 or 18 to like 2022, somewhere around there. I think that it did radicalize a lot of people. I wouldn't really consider myself radicalized, but I would consider myself very aware. And now I am extremely skeptical of any type of censorship. I'm very skeptical of any type of compelled thought or compelled speech. And I'm in general the kind of guy that believes that the best reaction to bad speech is good speech that counters it. And in the free marketplace of ideas, the best
Hmm.
ideas will usually win out. So I wanted to make this video and talk about it because I've never really had the opportunity to like really formulate what I really believe with this kind of stuff. And hopefully you guys can kind of see how this shift has happened and how you've observed it yourself. And I'd be curious in the comments.
I mean, I'm watching this video like a little later than it came out or whatever. Um, there's been a special, especially a special vibe shift because just recently, what was it? Joe Biden pardoned his son from like all those crimes and shit. And like, I'll ask like somebody that's just I know of like what they think about it, and I'm like, I can get the vibe because whenever they give me their opinion, they say it in a way that sounds sarcastic. They're like, "Oh yeah, of course that would happen. I would do that same thing. I would pardon my son too." And I'm just like, this is like the knee jerk answer that I'm getting from a lot of people, and it's like I kind of get it that like people in an ideal world want justice, like blind justice, um to be, you know, people to hold blind justice above all morals and ethics. But when it comes to like your family, it would honestly seem that it's just not the case. Blind justice does not prevail. And 99% of the time, blind justice prevails, except the 1% of the time where it does not. And when it's on full display in front of everybody, that the most powerful like person in the world can engage in it to just completely pardon someone that is their, you know, their kin. It's just like it's a slap in the face. That's what it feels like. I mean, I don't know the details of all the crimes and shit that whatever he was doing, but just on like a knee jerk reaction, like, what are you fucking doing? I don't care if it's your son. It's just bullshit. Are you kidding me? Jesus. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. And it's like everybody I asked, they said about damn near the same thing. They all were like, "Oh yeah, I would have done the same thing. It's not surprising. They're part of the club. I'm not part of it." And it's like everybody is just so like black pilled when that happened. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Other kind of barometers or like temperature checks you've seen, and where you've kind of seen, oh wow, yeah, things really are different now. And I feel like we're going to continue seeing them become more and more different than what they were. And in general, I can see that becoming a bad thing, but also especially with people being able to think for themselves and no compelled speech, etc. And I think this is a very good thing. So overall, I do think it was all pretty much started with Elon Musk buying Twitter, because it was the first break in the giant wall of thought policing and compelled thought on the internet. As soon as Twitter opened up, then everybody came through and it exposed all of the weaknesses in that ideology, and I think it pretty much destroyed it. So we'll see how things go. Obviously, anything like this doesn't happen overnight, but I've really found it to be incredibly interesting and compelling to watch and experience over the last probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years, hard really to say. And I'm curious to see where it's going to go. And that's about it, guys. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
All right. The vibe shift, it is happening. I don't know whether it's good or bad. I mean, shit, I don't know. All I can do is just sit in my room and just watch everything unfold. But overall, cool video. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.